Welcome everyone to the first in a 10-part series of the Encode DeFi Club, teaching DeFi and DeFi primitives to anyone that wants to learn, mainly students, and we have a lot of our kind of university societies and university students here today. And just so everyone knows, this event is being recorded. A lot of this content that as part of this series is meant for more for recorded use and to be shared as a resource around our kind of university audiences. So please do bear that in mind if you want to ask questions that you will be kind of on camera in inverted commas. Yeah. In any event, we will make this content available via the YouTube, via the Medium after the event to anyone that wants to kind of consume it, as well as sharing it privately with all of our kind of partner university clubs and societies. So I think we should actually just get things kind of underway. I've said this is the Encode DeFi Club. This event today is our introductory event where we kind of introduce the kind of course, introduce the workshops, and also I'm going to give a very general overview of DeFi. In general, for those of you that are kind of experienced DeFi users, you may find some of this a little bit kind of boring, quite frankly, because we are going to go through some of the basics. But for someone who's coming into DeFi and even blockchain for the first time, hopefully this should be a really good look into how kind of things work. We won't get too deep in this workshop. We're going to kind of just kind of be very light touch. And then most excitingly, after I've kind of said a few words, we're going to have two presentations, two presentations from two fantastic DeFi companies. One, Mark from Aave, and two, Barney from Vega, so we can see some hands-on what it is actually like to kind of play with a DeFi kind of company and technology in action. So without further ado, let's get things underway. For those of you who don't know, I'm Anthony. I'm running Encode Club, which is a university blockchain community. We educate, support, and back university talent coming into the space, particularly at this important time when the industry is growing so quickly. Bringing new talent into the space is quite frankly incredibly important. Yeah, in general, we've kind of, I think, devised some shape of a kind of a process in order to bring the talent into the space. And many of you here today, and many of you here to come, have been through some bit of this process, be it workshops. Today is a workshop, one of our great AMAs, our hackathons that we do, our accelerators, and all the kind of maybe benefited from getting a job from us or one of our partners, or maybe have raised money coming out of one of our kind of programs. In general, as I said, this course is 10 weeks long. It's a general educational initiative to promote and accelerate blockchain of DeFi to students worldwide. Just as a proviso, I said I'm going to aim this at kind of a basic level to begin with. There are more technical workshops that we have planned. I'll talk through those in a minute. And there are kind of more general scope, just learn about what DeFi is, everything in between, and some great AMAs coming. But if you're a developer, an economist, a lawyer, scientist, whatever your background, I think you'll learn a lot from this series. It is not obligatory to turn up to every event. It is recorded. It is meant to be consumed in your own time, but it is quite fun to turn up to events like this and kind of engage and ask questions live if you kind of so wish. A little bit more about Encode before I move on. We have an outstanding university community across. These are just I think 12 of the many, well actually more than 12 of the many kind of logos we have and many societies and partners that are kind of take part in this program. So thank you to all our university clubs and societies for all the work you do on the ground to really kind of do blockchain education. And I know it's easier at times now. It was maybe a little bit harder before when blockchain maybe wasn't as popular, but now with the kind of zeitgeist at the moment, it's a fun time and you're doing fantastic work kind of promoting blockchain on the ground. So well done, all of you. And we've been delighted to be backed by some fantastic sponsors in the past in general, and you'll see some familiar names there, but also right now in this program, we have three great sponsors, Aave, CoinMarketCap, and Vega. I'll talk a little bit about each of these in turn later on in the program, but you'll be seeing a lot of them, and we have a few others that will be joining us towards next week as well, who kind of will thank you for all their support in supporting this initiative. We're extremely grateful. So just a quick word, George has put the Discord in. It's a good place for discussion, asking questions, meeting people, getting jobs. So if you do want to join the Discord, go to the chat. The link is in there. It is there. So please do kind of have a look and get involved. Just an overview of what's coming next. This is the intro event. This is week 1. Next week we have a DeFi product stack event, the one of 2, where we talk an in-depth look at DeFi products, how you can use them, how you can get involved with them, how they work. So I really encourage you to come next week. And then we will have a series of AMAs. Some of them are still to be confirmed. We have some quite amazing speakers planned. But the first one is with Arthur Brightman, who's actually the founder of Tezos and one of the kind of OGs in the space, and speaking in week 3. We have 2 building on DeFi events that are more technical in week 6 and 8. And we finally have a getting hired in DeFi event on week 10. So look out for those. All of those links are on our website. George has put the DeFi Club link, and also on Eventbrite, and you can find it many places if you follow Encode. So we're going to give you an overview of DeFi now. This is my take on DeFi. Hopefully it's one you share, but if anyone has any different opinions, please do say in the chat as well. I'd be more than happy to open a discussion. I'm going to give you my kind of bottom-up look of what DeFi is. And I think it really starts with an understanding of what TradFi is. TradFi is this term that has kind of been popularized in recent weeks and months as referring to kind of traditional finance, and really finances we know it now. And I think the best way to conceptualize this is as banks, quite frankly, and what banks do. And we engage with banks on a day-to-day basis. They manage our money. We have our savings accounts there. We get loans. We get our mortgage from a bank. You see banks doing kind of more and more complicated things if you've ever worked in finance. But the best way I want you to kind of first of all think about, before we learn about what DeFi is, but think about kind of TradFi. And when I talk about, I've just kind of listed some, but broadly here is a list of everything from asset management to credit to compliance to debt to insurance to tokenization to trading. There's many, many more things that banks do. But broadly, we'll talk about this kind of set of stuff when we're referring to traditional finance. But I think all of them come back to money, and everything really at the heart of this series comes back to money, and understanding of how money really works. And I don't mean kind of cash. I don't mean kind of pounds that you have in your pocket. I very much mean digital money that we send. If I send someone their salary, or if I send them, I don't know, some money because they paid for the pizza and I want to reimburse them. How does this money actually work? How does this money kind of trade hands in the real world right now? And I think the best way to understand it is as a spreadsheet, because if let's say I'm sending money to George, and we're both on HSBC, and I send George £100, and all HSBC is doing, no one is going into a vault somewhere and going, let me go and get this little £100 and put it in this box. This is George's box now, so that he can withdraw at any time. Much like if anyone ever saw the kind of scenes in I've now forgot the thing, but certainly in Harry Potter as well, where you have the bank and you have the vaults and all of that. Mary Poppins is what I'm thinking about when they have the run on the bank. It's not like that. What actually happens is on a spreadsheet somewhere, someone says Anthony has £100 less and George has £100 more. This is all it works. And the bank in this instance is a central party. It's the trusted resource that says, okay, we are the ones that say Anthony has £100 less and George has £100 more. And this is to avoid me being able to double spend that money. Double spending is this kind of key concept. Any of you that have kind of originally read the Bitcoin white paper, it's kind of quite obsessed with this fact. If you don't want to double spend, if you can allow people to double spend their money, the money is worth nothing. You need money to actually have a value that people recognize. And as I said, someone needs to kind of manage this spreadsheet, and it's not just one spreadsheet that HSBC kept, and neither is it called a spreadsheet. It's something bigger. It's usually some bigger database. A database is a nice bigger way of looking or referring to a spreadsheet that is kept maybe by something like the Bank of England or by interbanks around the world. But broadly, they all have a spreadsheet, a database. The better term is a ledger that keeps track of who has what. And rather than actually physically moving money when I send it, they just change the tallies about who has what at any one time. And then if I want to get a source of truth, I go to banks. Now, immediately you might say, okay, Anthony, this seems like a system that works well. I receive my salary every month. This is great. I always say to people that where this system kind of intuitively breaks down is anyone who's ever sent money overseas, particularly if you go UK to US, or I don't know, UK to Africa or US to Africa, how slow the process is. And this is lots of different systems connecting up to each other and money having to move between them. and it's very inefficient and very slow. And when you, for the first time ever you've ever sent money using crypto, and even with gas prices, even with kind of scalability issues, it's still much quicker. You kind of get like, oh my God, yes, this is so much better. And hopefully we can actually demo some of this stuff in future events, so you can actually see it in action and set it up for yourself. Blockchain kind of changes everything. I don't want this to be too much of an intro to blockchain event. George can put the links about previous events. We've actually got one coming up on Tuesday for those of you that want to learn in depth about what blockchain is. But blockchain changes everything by changing who is the central party here. And rather than making it an actual entity or entities, you make code, the kind of the law. You have a system whereby everyone can, in a decentralized manner, agree that stuff has happened, and everyone has a copy of this ledger. And when a change is, when you want to make a change, when you want to send a transaction, a copy of this, a notification of this effectively goes to every operator, every node, every participant in the network in order to have an updated version of this ledger. And again, I don't want to make this too deeply technical about blockchain, but blockchain completely spins it on its head. And if you want to learn more about that, join one of our intro to blockchain events where you can go deep into that. But broadly, you end up having these features. It's immutable, it can't be changed. A bank don't do this, but they could technically, if they really wanted to, they have the source of truth, so they could change the source. They could change this truth if they wanted to. It's decentralized. You don't rely on a central party. And we've all heard these kind of things about banks going down and the issues it has to the financial system. Crypto, you don't really have that. Maybe if Ethereum went down, it's very difficult for Ethereum to go down. But the system is decentralized, which means you don't have to trust anyone. You trust the code, and if the code looks solid and secure, and you can believe in it, actually any bad actor can't really do any wrong. You're incentivized to participate in it. And this other word down here, it's I like to think of it as competitive. People only use the system because they want to use the system, and it benefits to use the system. And this creates a very resilient system. And the moment the system stops working, usually someone forks the code because it's open source and starts it with their own variation. Very different to if I don't like my financial system in the UK, I'm kind of screwed. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck within the confines that the state has given me. It's community owned, which is very different to banks. And I do not mean this I study politics myself, so I actually don't mean this in any great kind of socio-political or politico-philosophical way. I simply mean it's that all the participants actually own it in a capitalistic sense, and want to benefit from it and want to profit from it. Certainly, I do not want to kind of posit any ideas of any kind of socialism or communism. And it's also this massive thing, it's programmable. Any of you that's ever, maybe we've had some people here who've worked at banks, perhaps MBAs, or people currently developers, and you understand how intricate and unsophisticated and kind of admin heavy laden banks are. And this idea that anything is programmable is kind of in banks is completely wrong, because they're usually using legacy software and you can't do cool things about crypto. Everything you do with money is programmable. We'll talk about that in a moment. And the reason why it's programmable is you have these things called smart contracts. Again, please join one of our intro to blockchain workshops and guides to kind of coding and smart contracts if you want to kind of get to know this a little bit better. And what it allows you basically is to, in the most simple sense, is to add if-then statements on top of money. If X happens, let Y happen. Great example is the ICO boom, which is basically the most simple if-then statement you could really have, which says if X amount of money is deposited in this one place, give people a share of this other token linked to how much they put in as a share of the whole. Like, so simple. But you can do many more complicated things here. But if you've got money Legos in there by design, and you can interact with money at a code level, you can start doing some very cool things. And this leads to this idea that code is law, and that rather than you kind of relying on any human actors, you could imagine if you were trying to withdraw a lot of money from your bank today, you'd probably have to go and call someone, get verification, you might get your account blocked. No. You can set the rules in code in crypto, in blockchain, with smart contracts. And this is just revolutionary, because any of you that have done it before know that actually if you can program something, if you can make something automated, it's obviously going more efficient. Subject to obviously the difficulties of making that programmable, and that's why I'm very much looking forward to hearing from Aave and Vega today about how they have tried to solve and are solving complicated financial kind of problems in such simple and neat ways. I want it now. Do you know, I used to love about when I gave presentations is sharing videos, because I think videos break a thing up. And I want to, again, to emphasize this thing about inefficiency of banks by showing you a video. And this is one of my favorite movies, and actually, more importantly, favorite books by Michael Lewis, which is The Big Short. And it's kind of a look into when you see how inefficient financial products are made by banks, and then you see how neat and clean and quick it is to build kind of the crypto equivalents, you get sold on DeFi quite quickly. So I'm going to hopefully play a video. If there's any problems listening, hearing it, or the quality, please do let me know.
I want to buy swaps on mortgage bonds, credit default swap that will pay off if the underlying bond fails.
You want to bet against the housing market?
Why? Those bonds only fail if millions of Americans don't pay their mortgages. That's never happened in history. If you'll excuse me, Dr. Berry, it seems like a foolish investment.
Based on prevailing sentiment of the market, banks, and popular culture, yes, it's a foolish investment, but everyone's wrong.
This is Wall Street, Dr. Berry. If you offer us free money, we are going to take it.
My one concern is that when the bonds fail, I want to be certain of payment in case of solvency issues with your bank.
I'm sorry, are you for real? You want to bet against the housing market and you're worried we won't pay you?
Yes, that's correct.
Dr. Berry, we could work out a pay-as-we-go structure that would pay out if the bonds fail, but it would also apply to your payments if the value of the mortgage bond goes up. You'd have to pay us monthly premiums.
Is that acceptable, Dr. Berry?
Yes. I have prospectuses on mortgage-backed securities, all unsure.
Majority.
Dr. Berry, these should be fine.
Yeah, we're prepared to sell you $5 million in credit default swaps on these mortgage bonds.
Can we make it 100 million?
Absolutely, we can make it 100 million.
We'll be in touch. Paperwork over.
I like these cups. Could I take one for my son?
Yes.
I will end that there. I mean, slightly long the video. The point is, this is a, I think, a very interesting look at, and obviously a Hollywoodified look at how a financial product is created. In this case, for those of you who kind of missed the context, this is a real life story. This is Dr. Michael Berry, who was a kind of hedge fund manager betting against the housing market and asking for the creation of these things called credit default swaps, which I will not go into, but you can actually start doing things like that in crypto. And they were creating a product for him out of kind of thin air. And it was kind of very human orientated. And you saw his perspective. It was 600 pages. I don't think I've ever seen anything 600 pages long in crypto. Certainly not light papers or even white papers. And I think it's always testament to me. It's like, oh yeah, this is the glamorous version. Imagine it's much more kind of intricate and boring and human orientated in practice. Crypto, you can do this a lot quicker. Let's not do that. In general, humans create inefficiency. Humans are great at many things. We are great at many things. But crypto reimagines finance from scratch, based on this idea of programmability. Everything is code. And when you see the products that the Aave team and the Vega team have made, from teams that are good size, but nowhere near as big as a kind of bank or an exchange or anything like that. So you see, wow, the scale that code allows you, the products the creativity and innovative products you can create is quite outstanding. Whistle stop tour of how we got here. It started with Bitcoin. This by a man. Sorry, guys. Can everyone hear me again? Had a Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm in the countryside and Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi is a little bit dodgy. Anyway, I imagine I missed the slide there. So I'm going to get a whistle stop tour of how we got here. It started out with Bitcoin. This was invented by not this man. This is a man called Satoshi Nakamoto. This is not probably the creator of Bitcoin, but in this theory, he posited Bitcoin as effectively a currency that you would use, a digital currency that was censorship resistant, had all these qualities we mentioned earlier, trustlessness, decentralized, didn't rely on a bank, and that could be used as really as a medium of exchange. And it's quite obvious that you can't really use it as a medium of exchange. This is just a basic market cap chart. And anyone seen the kind of price of Bitcoin that it can go from in the last year, anything from being worth 6,000 to being worth kind of over 50,000 knows. And this is not what you want to see from your medium of exchange. So you had this other thing called Ethereum come along roughly a few years later. It didn't solve the stability thing, but allowed you to build smart contracts, which you've mentioned, which allow you to build programmability and build applications on top. And now if you've got this combination of, okay, I want to have a currency, Bitcoin, Ethereum weren't quite it. I mean, Ethereum never tried to be a currency, or at least a currency is used for exchange. And I can start building programmability, I can start building applications. What cool things can I start doing? And it wasn't as logical as this, it wasn't as clear, it wasn't as formulaic as this, but we start seeing things like stablecoins. This is kind of, I would say, the first thing that looks quite real worldy. This is just a kind of, for those who don't know, these are just currencies that are pegged to the dollar. So that you have in your crypto world, in your wallet, you have digitally $1 that is there that you can always have, and it's not going to move away from that. And this is cool because you get rid of the volatility issues. And then whenever you see the stupid headlines saying Warren Buffett says Bitcoin can't be used because it's too volatile, use the currency because it's too volatile, I mean, people usually go in crypto, yeah, duh. That's why we have stable coins. And I'm going to use the chance to plug a couple that have come out of our community in the last year, Reflexor Labs, that are doing very well with Rye. This is an idea that you don't necessarily have to peg your stable coin to the dollar. Look, innovation. It could maybe float along range, and also Float Protocol, which takes that another step further and says, actually, why does it even have to float in a given range? Can't it just float in the long term based on what happens to the crypto market, like a fiat currency? Fiat, for those of you who don't know, just refers to kind of currencies that like the dollar, pound, the euro, etc. You then, I want to introduce this idea of exchanges. Exchanges are probably the most obvious thing I think of when you think of archetypal kind of Wall Street and TradFi. And this is perhaps not seen now, you'd see because of COVID, but the trading floors are kind of often glamorized in movies. And crypto completely kind of dropped this on its head and completely changed the game mainly because you have now new ownership models through protocols. This idea that you don't need to have a central party in the middle who's trying to kind of take a load of profit, that you can start building things that community owns, that people want to engage in, they want to be a part of, they want to vote on it, they want to kind of feel like they kind of gain from the profit, just allows such a speediness of innovation. And we first of all saw this first generation of traditional exchanges. These aren't the exchanges I mean. They do great work, they're fantastic, but they are not this kind of, I wouldn't necessarily count them as this DeFi kind of part of this DeFi zeitgeist. I mean, kind of projects like this, Uniswap, SushiSwap, DYDX, 1inch, and hopefully we'll have some kind of more in-depth stuff about those that are completely decentralized exchanges, which means that anyone can create a market, anyone can be a liquidity provider. Often where kind of exchanges make their most money is providing liquidity, taking the other side of the bets you make. Why not? Why does that have to be reserved to the kind of central party? Why can't this be any person? They have very cool ways of doing that. you can vote on what you want the fees to be. You can own the token and be part of, and get, if you think this protocol is going to be popular, kind of gain part of the fees. And immediately you have a model whereby if I launch, and this happens so often in crypto, and it's such a barometer for innovation, if I launched a project at 3 a.m. at night, there could be a market for it at 4 a.m. There could be a public page on CoinMarketCap that shows the price at 5 a.m. And you could be able to lend and borrow it on Aave at 6 a.m. It's never that quick, but for argument's sake, you could absolutely do that. And that's absolutely amazing. I should actually plug Euler, who've also come out of our hackathon, that are trying to allow you to do permissionless lending for the long tail. So that perhaps in that instance, it would probably be unlikely the token will be on Aave immediately, but it might be on Euler, where you can immediately kind of borrow and lend it as long as someone creates a market. This is a completely different pace. And another thing that I think with DeFi or with TradFi I think is amazing is if those markets turn off at Friday at 5 p.m., crypto never turns off. And why should these markets turn off? There's absolutely no reason for it to do so. And this is kind of also the reason why centralization is a problem that we love Binance. They've done fantastic things for us. And in this instance, this is not done out of kind of malice in any way, shape or form. It was to do with an internal issue, but you can't really have systems, kind of a moment where trading is suspended for something because this kind of, and this happens in the real world a lot, this leads to unnatural kind of effects on markets. And I can understand that why people much prefer this idea that no one has a monopoly over your money. And in crypto, if you don't like something, you can fork it and you can start again. As I said, new ownership models through protocols, that if you don't like the way Uniswap is doing it, you can create SushiSwap. If you don't like the way that YFIs do it, you could make another YFI. Some of you might know the names I'm mentioning, some of you might not. We're definitely going to explore them in the next few weeks. Yeah, so decentralized exchanges is such an obvious one, and we'll have a play around with those in future weeks. Liquidity is one of these things that crypto also completely changes on its head, or flips on its head, in good ways and bad ways. In good ways because you have this idea of tokenization, tokenization by design. You can allow people to kind of farm these tokens, to kind of want to get these tokens, and if maybe I create a new protocol called Anthony Protocol, and Anthony Protocol is going to do amazing financial things, but I need to jumpstart it. I need to kind of get it going. I need liquidity. I need money flowing through the system. I could say, well, everyone, if you're willing to provide liquidity, I'll give you some Anthony token. And then people go, well, I think Anthony token is going to be great. I really believe in this protocol. I'll do this. And suddenly you've jumpstarted liquidity. Then I can tokenize this kind of liquidity I'm providing, or my rewards to this liquidity, and take them and do something else with it. Imagine doing that in the real world. Imagine the process of taking, I don't know, your mortgage and then putting it down as collateral for something else, or putting your savings down as collateral for something else. Like, this is often a paperwork-laden task that's usually impossible. Anyone that's got a credit check, it's always so slow and laborious. Everyone's gone through a mortgage check, slow and laborious. Crypto does things that are tantamount to the same thing, and it's so much faster. And we'll go through how you do that in the next few weeks. But liquidity is something in crypto completely changes on its head. Again, the bad side is that there's a lot of speculation involved because people do get overly excited and they do see a profit opportunity. These things go hand in hand. Money usually means hype, which means speculation. But the core of it is really cool liquidity devices and fundraising devices. You have new ways of looking at insurance, where you can get, you might be thinking, oh, I don't trust this smart contract. I'm worried the code is not completely law, it's going to break. You can get assurances if it breaks or if it gets hacked. You can, there's all of these things that you would look like if-then statements. If bad things happen, do this. The likes of Nexus, Cover, and Opium have sorted those out for you. We're going to talk about the next two things at the moment. I want to use this opportunity to kind of introduce our two speakers today, because it's all well and good me giving you an overview, but let's see this in action. So we're going to start now with lending, because lending is kind of the basis of why banks make a lot of profits. And this idea that I don't just want the money I have in my bank account, I want to borrow to be able to do other things based on the fact the system trusts me. And you have two real leaders, Aave and Compound. Aave, we have Mark today, who's going to be speaking. Just a while on Aave, they've been supporting us for a while. They did sponsored our summer hackathon, the Spark hackathon, and we saw some great projects there. And Stani actually gave an AMA to the Encode audience last year as well. But the speed of their growth and innovation since, I mean, pretty much a year ago has been unbelievable. And what they're doing for the space is amazing. So Mark, I'm going to introduce you to now. I'm going to ask one question. Hamza, you said, do we have a hands-on session today? Not today. The hands-on stuff will be in future weeks. This is more of a kind of touch base on everything that's to come. But Mark, over to you to tell us a little bit about Aave, lending, and anything you want to in between. I will stop sharing my screen and give you the ability to do so.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invite. So today I will present you Aave, but don't worry, it's not a presentation for developers. It's not a presentation for DeFi enthusiasts that already know everything. I try to make things simple for this presentation because this is week one, but don't worry, if you want to dive deeper, you will have all the opportunities to do that in the next few weeks. Can you guys see my screens right now? So my name is Mark. I'm the integration lead of Aave. You can find me on Twitter. And basically what Aave is, it all boils down being a liquidity protocol on a decentralized blockchain that is Ethereum. And what a liquidity protocol does is that it met and two kinds of actors, the depositor and the borrowers. The depositor are actors that can be anyone, that can be you, that are looking to have what we call a decentralized saving account. So instead of having assets directly inside the bank, inside TradFi, in DeFi, you can directly deposit into a non-custodian smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain, and you will be able to earn interest on those deposits. So you basically get a passive income, just like a saving accounts. And you can do that with speculative assets like Ethereum, Bitcoin tokenization on Ethereum, like WBTC, Link, Aave, or whatever kind of speculative asset. But as Anthony just said, on the blockchain, there's also non-speculative assets, such as stablecoins. So if you have some USD in your accounts or any other kind of fiat, you can get, for example, USDC, deposit that into Aave and get a passive income on that. And where does this income come from? It comes from the second kind of actors of liquidity protocol, the borrowers. Those borrowers, they deposit security deposit in assets, and they take liquidity from the protocol in exchange of paying interest rates. And the good thing about DeFi is that there's no middleman. That's basically you, the protocol, and the borrowers. And as there's no middleman, as there's no clearing house, as there's no commission, these kind of things, basically it's much more efficient and profitable than what you can find in traditional finance, because obviously when you cut out all the middlemen, it's much more efficient. The current state of DeFi and Aave, as Anthony said, has been quite a growth in 2020 and 2021. We launched in January 2020, and we reached around $5 billion liquidity inside the protocol. DeFi in itself started to explode in terms of usage and adoption during the summer of 2020. Early this summer 2020, there were like $1 billion in the world DeFi ecosystem. Now, if you have a protocol and you have $1 billion of deposit, you're not even in the top 12 of DeFi, because the full market is around $40 billion. And also, being a decentralized protocol means that as community members, as active users, and as token holders, you have your say on how the protocol evolves and how the protocol is protected. So instead of having state guaranteed reserve funds or FDIC in the US or whatever is it called in the European Union, we have staking directly with the Aave asset, the native asset of the Aave protocol. The reserve backing the protocol are around $1.5 billion as we are speaking. And there's around $1.1 billion of outstanding loans, meaning that the full protocol is collateralized in case of some kind of market black swan. And also, if you want to have new assets accessible into Aave. You don't need to ask any centralized authority. My job at Aave is to work on the technical side, to write code, but I'm not here to decide if this asset or another asset can make the cut into the Aave listing. You are the one who decide. We have active governance forum. Anybody can participate, do governance votes, vote on it if they own some Aave tokens, and basically decide if an asset is listed or not. And I would like to share one of invitation if you are interested into that. We have open program with university and active learning centers. The most recent one were done with Blockchain at Berkeley group. We also did HEC Business School in Montreal, and we will be more than happy to onboard attendees of Encode Club if you want to participate actively inside the Aave governance. The main protocol features of a lending protocol, and especially into Aave, are around 5 main topics: earning, borrowing, credit delegation, flash loan, and governance. And we will try to explain that in several ways each time. The first way is really explain like I'm 5. So the most basic way to describe those decentralized saving accounts is that you let other people borrow your money when you're not using it. And basically, as long as you don't use your money, you will make money on top of it. That's it. If you want to go slightly deeper, you can deposit your money inside the protocol, earn immediate interest on the amount deposited, and there's no lockup. You can withdraw anytime because it's non-custodian. You always are in control of your own money. Even deeper, if you want to, and probably at the end of the session you do in the Encode Club, in a few weeks, you will understand all these deeper level of explanation, is that we tokenize your deposits in the form of a token. It's a token IOU on the blockchain in exchange of your depositing tokens. And the account holding your A tokens, the lending pool protocol, the reserve pools, accrue interest based on protocol parameters and demand. So basically the interest rates are defined by supply and demand of liquidity inside the protocol. On the borrower side, it's just borrow money when you need it. On a DeFi protocol such as Aave, if you have a security deposit, even if it's 3 a.m. on a Saturday, you can borrow any amount you are available to borrow. So you deposit your security, deposit in assets, you borrow whatever amount you want, and then you pay back exactly whenever you want as well. And it's what we call a permissionless system. So you don't have to show an ID to do that. You don't have to do paperwork to do that. There's a set of rules that are defined by the code of the protocol. And if you follow those rules, you can interact with the protocol as you want. So if we go a bit deeper, borrow money, depending on how much you have deposited in the system, pay back anytime. Why? Depending on how much you have deposited in the system, it's because to make sure the protocol is safe and secure, every loan is over-collateralized. So the loan to value of your position, your financial position inside Aave or any DeFi protocol will be that you will deposit more value than what you will borrow. In order to make sure that if you don't pay back for any kind of reason, there's an incentive for a third-party actor to pay back your debt on your behalf. And obviously, that's not going to be a benevolent action, because as every loan is over-collateralized, there will be enough to pay back that third-party actor, plus what we call a liquidation bonus. And that system of loans is actually not innovative at all. It's in the financial history, it's quite old. It's what we call the Lombard credit system. It's something that is as old as humankind, and it's the cornerstone on how DeFi works. And if we want to go deeper, you can use your A tokens, so the IOU or tokens of your deposit into Aave as collateral to borrow the supported asset by the protocol at either a stable or variable interest rate. So you can choose to have an interest rate on your borrows that are defined by supply and demand, and that will change each time that the liquidity change inside the protocol. Or you can choose to pay a small premium and have a stable rate, and the cost of your borrow will be stable over time. Credit delegation is something new, something that actually Aave invented. It's let other people borrow your money. And obviously that's not a benevolent action, because if we go deeper, you can deposit into Aave to earn your passive income, just like a decentralized saving account. And you can choose to increase your pathway to have passive income by basically borrowing on behalf of third parties. And obviously you do that by charging a premium between what you charge to the third parties and what is the cost to you by the protocol. And everything is automated and secure by the Aave protocol. And so basically what happens inside the protocol is that you give other access to your credit line as you have a deposit. So for example, you have some USD, you convert that into USDC and you want a passive income. That deposit is also some borrowing power in case of the loans. But most people, they don't want to take loans. They just want to have savings. And that borrowing power can be defined to a third party and let them draw up to that credit amount in their own time. And there can be an enforcement or a repayment that can happen on-chain directly by the rules of the protocol, or also can happen with a legally binding agreement off-chain. And we have a partnership with a structure like, I don't remember the name right now, but I will tell it in 5 seconds when I remember it, to have legally binding agreement between parties. Last one is probably something that will be interesting, is a financial product that can exist only on the blockchain. Like TradFi, traditional finance cannot offer this kind of financial product. It's the flash loan, also something that was invented last year by Aave. And the explain like a version is quite funny. It's like free money that you have to pay back immediately. And it's a bit weird explaining like that, but if we go deeper and in more financial terms, if some of you have some financial background, it's a unsecured fixed term loans of 15 seconds. Why 15 seconds? It's because the transaction has to be settled inside the same block of the Ethereum blockchain. And on the Ethereum blockchain, there's an update of the ledger every 15 seconds. So the whole decentralized ledger is updated every 15 seconds. So you can have access to any amount of liquidity, but you have to pay back that amount of liquidity immediately after, before the next block of the blockchain, with a very low fixed interest rate, 9 BPS, 0.09%, that the bank, in this term, the Aave protocol, can always collect at expiry. There's no risk. So the technology of the smart contract allow us to provide that credit line, that immediate term credit line to any third party, and make sure that if in the scenario of that money not being paid back, the transaction executing that loan fails and it's rejected by the protocol. So flash loan can only exist if they succeed. And what happened basically under the hood is that the lending pool will loan money and it has to be repaid back at the end of the transaction. And that can, in terms of use case, can be applied to a wide variety of different situations, because nearly any code execution can happen between the loan, so you take the money from the protocol, to the repayment. So let's take a few examples. And so this is a transaction doing a collateral swap on MakerDAO, which is another, which is a decentralized money minter creating the DAI stablecoins. So basically in this example, someone had some Ethereum as collateral and decide to swap that for having some USDC as collateral. So one of the application of that is that if you have a loan and your security deposit is Ethereum, Ethereum is a speculative asset. So there's a lot of volatility on that asset. This asset in 2000 started the year 2018 at $1,500 valuation and ended the same year, 2018, at $80 valuation. So if you started your whatever loan in the early days of 2018 with Ethereum as collateral, and you keep that loan open during the year, you will have a big issue of collateralization during the year because 94% of value decrease. With a flash loan, you can keep your position open, but basically swap inside with a single transaction your collateral and end up with a stablecoin as collateral, so you don't have volatility issue. You can also do arbitrage between marketplace. If you, in this example, the price of Ethereum in one marketplace was slightly higher than in another marketplace. So inside a single transaction, someone bought some Ether where it was cheap to sell it where it was more expensive, and basically made the difference between the two without having to mobilize its own capital at all, because all the capital comes from the lending protocol. And also flash loan can be used in batch, so you can have any amounts of currency inside the transaction, allowing you to create complex financial products that can have a wide use case, range of use case. Last but really important, and what defines decentralized finance and compare it to traditional or centralized finance, or maybe what you will see during your course, CDFI or mixed centralized, decentralized finance, is the idea of governance. So decentralized finance protocol belongs to their users, belongs to the people that own their native assets, and doesn't belong to any central authority. It belongs to everyone. Anyone who owns the Aave tokens can help govern the governance and vote directly on the improvement proposal of the governance. But even if you don't have token, you can participate in the governance forum and have your say inside the future of Aave and what happened inside the protocol. So it's a path toward full decentralization. Basically, when you work inside the DeFi protocol, you merely build code and feature that the community wants, and you don't have any kind of control on the platforms, and you all belongs to the community. So I will give you one example, is that a new asset is listed into Aave. So that's something really critical. A lot of people want to list their asset into Aave in order to use them as collateral, in order to borrow them. There's quite a lot of money involved in this kind of situation. And it all was done, and it all starts the same way. Sometimes a team member of the asset concerned or a community member of the asset concern will write a governance post. And this is the example of Curve Finance native asset, the CRV token. So this is the governance post. Then anybody can have delegation of proposal power to any Ethereum address. So Julien Bouteloup, which is also a community member of the Curve protocol, said on social media, Twitter here, if you want to support the listing of CRV asset into Aave, please delegate, and you own some Aave or stake Aave asset, please delegate your proposition power directly to me or directly to this address. People have done that. And basically, Julien Bouteloup got enough proposal power to do a binding proposition to the Aave protocol. And the result is that now you can find CRV into Aave as one of the 20 assets we have. And the process is open to everyone. There's AIP proposal open every day. And this is how you define the protocol. So it's an off-chain process. You submit ARC, what we call ARC, Aave request for comments, or AIP, Aave improvement proposal. The proposal is created when you reach enough proposal power. So you really have to understand this idea of liquid democracy in DeFi as well. So you don't need to own millions of dollars of asset to have your say inside the evolution of the protocol. You just need to do campaigns. And there's really in DeFi, the emergence of what we call protocol politicians, and anybody can be one. If you are active enough and you have things to say and things you want to defend, then the proposal is vote on chain, and then the execution is done on chain. And one of the last thing I want to say, and I will finish on that, is that DeFi is more an ecosystem than just juxtaposition of silos of application. There's really the idea of we all in this together, and there's a lot of synergy. We call that also composability between DeFi application. In Aave, we call that the Avenger family because we love meme on the internet. I will present two of them. DeFi Server is specialized on trading tools. They use flash loan to do leverage long and short on market position to bet on price and volatility of crypto assets. There's also games, so non-speculative application that will use NFTs. You will probably see during the course of the program what are non-fungible tokens, and they use Aave as the back end for their games. We had more than 200 integrations so far in 1 year and 3 months. And if you want to go deeper, we have a lot of resources. You can find that. Thank you for your attention.
Awesome, Mark. Thank you so much. That was absolutely awesome. We have quite a lot of questions, but I think we should move on to our second speaker. By the way, I had such a nice little like picture. There we go. Come on, load. And I didn't actually load it, so sorry. But Mark, thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you.
I now want to move over to Barney, who's going to talk us through trading derivatives, Vega, how Vega are disrupting trading in TradFi. I'm really excited for this one. So Barney, whenever you're ready, handing over to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, let me just get my screen share set up and I'll be with you in just a second.
All right. So guys, questions, just keep them going. We'll do a little Q&A at the end if we have time to go through. There's quite a lot of cool questions in here. But yeah, do save them and do put them through onto to chat.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see not a blank screen, but the intro to this presentation.
Perfect.
Brilliant. So let's get started here. So where I want to start with is I'm going to give you guys a whistle-stop sort of tour of the idea of derivatives and DeFi and what Vega is doing that's special. And then I will also talk about some of the key features that are built into the Vega protocol, and probably end up with a little bit of a demo just to kind of give you a flavor of what that looks like in reality. So, to start with, let's talk a little bit about derivatives, because derivatives are really interesting. They're much maligned in some of the press around the financial crisis and other things like that. And actually, some of that's a little bit unfair, because the problem with derivatives in a financial crisis is more that you have a huge amount of people taking massive unsecured exposure. So they have a contract where they could owe you $100 million, but kind of like the guy was asking about actually in the clip from The Big Short that we saw, maybe that they don't actually have $100 million anywhere. And so they're doing all these contracts, and when things go away they didn't expect, suddenly they all owe each other a lot of money. And actually, what happens in the financial crisis is all these leveraged unsecured exposures that everyone had with each other, not only were they massive, but no one really knew what the total at risk was. And so the problem wasn't really derivatives. The problem was actually the way the system is structured, the opacity, the fact it was not really clear to anyone what was going on, and the fact that people were allowed to take this exposure without dealing with the risk or having any sort of assets on hand to necessarily be able to cover it. So with that in mind, let's think of a really simple scenario. In business, I've got a plane, I've got some passengers who come and jump on my plane, they pay me some money, and I get some money in a bag, which I can take and go buy an island or a boat or my dinner or whatever else it is I need. So that's kind of how you think of a business as working. But in reality, what happens is there's some other things going on. You've got the price of the oil and the fuel for the plane, and then you've got the price of the currencies of the different airline tickets and the services in each country that you fly to and from. And all of a sudden you have this situation where sometimes those things can change price, and the customers all bought their tickets 6 months ago, but your fuel price has gone up now, and maybe you don't make money. That's a really, really difficult situation to have to do business in. And it doesn't just apply to people who operate airplanes, it applies to pretty much everyone. If you're a farmer and you're looking to sell your crops, if there's a huge amount of supply of those crops that year, there's a really bumper year, or the trends move and people are not eating as much of that thing, then you're out of pocket. Equally, if the weather impacts things, then you can have a bad year for crops and not have as much to sell, and that all affects your money. And so the important thing about derivatives is what they can be used to do is manage risk, because they're effectively financial instruments where the price is derived from something called the underlying else that is going on in the world. And that can be the weather, that can be the price of oil, that can be the price of a currency, that can be whether or not a company is alive or bankrupt. And there are just hundreds and hundreds of different types of derivatives, from extremely simple ones like futures, which are very similar to the actual price of something, to really complex derivative products. And what the derivatives let you do is kind of wrap up that risk, manage it, and take out something that pays off based on how that risk performs. And that allows you to manage risk as a company. It also means you can speculate. So one of the reasons that people buy derivatives is to manage risk, but the other reason is because they think they actually understand those risks very well and they can make money. And so on the one hand, you might have farmers or airline operators using derivatives to hedge. On the other hand, you may have hedge funds actually supplying those derivatives to the farmers or airline operators by making a price in them, by attempting to price them well enough to make a profit overall, but also performing an important function in the market. And that all happens, as you guys probably all know, with leverage, which means that there can be very, very efficient ways to manage risk, because instead of having to buy all the oil that needs to go in your plane for the next year right now, which would be really expensive and you have to store it somewhere, you can effectively say, well, the oil price has a certain known volatility. So if you give me 10% of the value of the oil, then I'll happily give you this derivative, which will change in price and hedge your entire risk. So they can be a much more efficient way of kind of ensuring, if you like, or hedging the risks that you have as a business than actually going and buying the thing ahead of time, and which sometimes isn't even possible. So that's really what derivatives do. And what Vega does is, very similar to the presentation we've just seen about Aave, in terms of decentralizing things, taking them out of this sort of traditional finance world with gatekeepers and with other people controlling things in an opaque way. Vega is a protocol that allows you to create and trade derivatives on a completely decentralized exchange. It allows all the other benefits of DeFi. So, Vega initially integrates with the Ethereum blockchain. So you're trading ERC20 assets and other things on Ethereum, but also in future, it will have integrations to other blockchains as well. So it really allows composability across not only the DeFi ecosystem on Ethereum, but other places as well in future. It allows those assets in the markets that exist on Vega to actually be incorporated into smart contracts and other things on various other blockchains. But it also works on its own blockchain, which gives you much faster performance in terms of decentralized order books than you're used to on Ethereum. We have a thing called Wendy, which is a protocol that prevents front running. So again, trying to sort of move beyond just Ethereum-based decentralized exchanges with AMMs and with MEV and front running and other problems that actually present themselves when you have a sort of a relatively slow proof of work chain to a proof of stake chain, which has high leverage and high capital efficiency. So that's kind of a summary, but what does that mean in practice? Well, what it means in practice is that we're aiming for kind of professional use cases, if you like. One of the things we think is exciting about the DeFi space is not just the experimentation and the community of what's going on now, but the promise in the future of actually extending that out to the real world and to people's lives. And that means, for instance, if you're a business that imports or exports things, instead of having to go to an investment bank and pay all the fees and commissions to their various layers of manager and relationship manager and sales, you can actually go to something in the same way that DeFi users are doing the same with lending and with other types of return. You'll actually be able to go to a protocol like Vega, look for the products and the hedges you need, and acquire them at basically the same prices as anyone else in the market with a high level of efficiency. So that's super important. And what I'm going to do now is take a sort of a dive down to the next layer to just sort of explain some of the things that Vega gives you as a protocol that allow you to do those things, and that makes Vega a very effective way to do this. So first off, I want to talk about the market creation toolbox. So that's really the name, the grandiose name, I guess, that I'm giving to the set of primitives and the set of things built into the Vega protocol that make it super easy to create markets, to create products, to approve them, to have them tradable, to determine their prices, to manage margin, to manage to manage collateral efficiently. Rather than having to build everything from scratch in Solidity or something, Vega gives you these really high-level primitives. So we have the concept of an instrument, and we have this sort of the idea of an instrument itself, which is kind of the implementation of the product, the parameters that define that specific product, including things like the oracle that you would use for settlement and the other parameters around the instrument's definition. And then we have the risk model. So in order to do margin to trading, you need to understand something about the risk. You need to understand how volatile something is. You need to be able to calculate the amount of margin needed for any position. That's done by the risk model and the parameters. And together, by combining that instrument definition, which actually defines what it is you're trading, with the risk model that you're trading it under, you end up with a thing called a tradable instrument in Vega terminology, which is something on which you can create a market using the Vega protocol. These are all super easy to define. It's basically a kind of JSON-based format. You can specify them using some built-in stuff. In future, we'll actually allow that product implementation to be codable as well. So there'll be the ability to create effectively smart products with your own definitions in code. But at the moment, we have just built-in products. You then have the market definition itself, which talks about things like whether it trades in a sort of batch auction, trades in continuous order book trading, and the configuration of those trading parameters, and the circuit breakers that do price protection. So one of the things you'll have seen of some of the exploits in kind of some of the AMMs recently is where people are able to sort of push the price a long way out of whack temporarily and do something with that. Vega actually has built-in protections for that. It'll enter into a protective auction if the price moves really rapidly, which allows people to kind of come in and mediate that price move all automatically and all completely decentralized, completely DeFi protocol. And then on the governance side, we have a protocol similar to, again, to some of the stuff that Aave guys were talking about, where actually the token holders and the stakeholders in the protocol are able to control what goes on the markets, create new markets, make changes to the parameters of existing ones, and things like that. So this toolbox is really exciting, and this allows you to create markets super easily with Vega. You really don't have to write any code to create a market and launch it, so you can focus the code on trading and liquidity provision and things like that. But that toolbox is one part of it. The other part of Vega that's very, very important is the liquidity story. So it doesn't really matter if you can define a market and say, hey, this is great, everyone should come and trade on my new market. That doesn't really help if there's no liquidity, if there's no orders, if there's nothing to trade. So what Vega also has is a sophisticated liquidity mining system based on order book liquidity mining. You can see your liquidity providers on the left here. They provide commitments in terms of a bond, which is used to secure their commitment, a fee bid. So the liquidity providers actually in a completely decentralized way bid for the fees they'd like to see on the market and set the market fees. So these actually respond to the state of the market itself. The order shape, which is a fancy name for how you want to put your liquidity on the book. So in an AMM, you sort of have a curve which determines the price. In an order book, every trader effectively has their own curve. They have their own orders. And so this is where you basically say, this is how I would like to deploy my liquidity on the order book. You can also use things like limit orders as well to deploy liquidity, but this order shape is used to deploy automatically repricing liquidity. There can be many liquidity commitments. They're all applied to the market. And then as you can see on the right-hand side of the market here, you have the traders doing their trading. Every time they trade, that generates a fee. And then those fees go back to the liquidity provider. One of the cool things about this is that the way the LP shares are calculated is such that getting into a market early or creating a market gives you much more of the shares than getting in late. So you can think of this a bit like buying equity. If you invest in a startup, you get much more risk, but you also get a much higher percentage of the company. Same happens in Vega. If you commit liquidity to an early market, you take more risk on, the market might not do very well. You may be committing liquidity to someone with no fees. But if the market does well and people start trading it, then you earn a larger share of those fees than someone who just joins late. And that gives a strong incentive for people to come and create new markets and support new markets with liquidity. So those things really, you combine together that toolbox for market creation and creating various types of derivatives markets with leverage. You combine that with a liquidity mining system, which encourages people to create markets and to supply liquidity. And you get a really compelling system for usage here. But one of the other things that I want to talk about before we wrap this up is to talk about the actual experience of using Vega. And Vega has always been designed to be a very high performance decentralized exchange, something quite different to what you might be used to if you have seen something like Uniswap or others where you're limited to kind of the speed of the Ethereum order book. So believe it or not, everything you see here, and I can actually open the network panel and you can see the Vega blockchain for the testnet right now has about 800 millisecond block time. We've got 7 validator nodes running on the testnet, and we reset it at the beginning of the week with some new code. We're currently processing 40 odd orders per bot, so 60 odd orders per block. So 60, 80 transactions a second, just ticking along nicely. We can do a lot more. The underlying consensus layer can do up to 10,000. I think the system right now probably manage 1,000 or so. But you can see it's really dynamic. Like everything here is on chain. There's no centralized servers. There's no centralized exchange. But you can see the order book updating in sort of real time. The price is changing. Everything going on here. And just to give you another example, let's buy 150. This is the Apple market. So Apple shares buying 150. This market is USDC, or at least a testnet USDC, and you can see that I have 99,000 out of those, and currently I have 0 positions. So if I hit buy, what you'll see is I've hit buy there, and I've already got a position size of 150 that's updating in real time. And again, all of this is completely decentralized, happening on the blockchain, no centralized servers or anything, and that just demonstrates some of the kind of speed and responsiveness that you get from a high-performance order book-based DEX, something really different to perhaps what you might be useful if you've looked into other DeFi protocols. And then, just 2 more things before I wrap up. I'm going to talk a little bit about the resources at the end that we've got for the rest of this this hackathon. But I also want to talk a little bit about the developer experience, because after all, we're sat here in a hackathon, and you guys are probably interested to get involved with Vega and to discover what's going on there. So I just thought the last thing to leave you with would be a very simple demonstration of how easy it is to work with Vega. And one of the exciting things is that because Vega is a completely optimized application-based blockchain that's designed entirely for the purpose of derivatives and trading, the primitives that you have access and the APIs that are exposed by the nodes themselves are actually really, really rich. And it's a bit like interacting with a centralized exchange API. You don't have to kind of decode the contents of the blocks yourself and things like that. There's all the APIs provided to do that in a decentralized way on the node. If you run your own node, you'll be able to do this against the node running on your own machine. You can see here I've split my screen. I've got actually the same console application you were seeing before. These layouts are all completely customizable, so you can kind of drag everything around and set it how you want. So I've got the same console application set up how I like it for doing API work, which is a little bit of data about the chart and the order book, some collateral info, the big market info panel so I can get at the IDs quickly, and then you can see my orders and order history. And then on the left-hand side, I've just got VS Code editing a simple script that I've built. So this is just built in Python. You can see I've got an order here. I bought 150, so I'm going to change that to 150. See, I want to do a sell, do a limit order. That price is 110. Is similar to Ethereum. You don't have decimal points in the prices. Everything is sort of integers. It's good till cancelled, so I could make this an order that actually expires at a certain time, or other types of order. But let's just leave that as it is. And you can see how simple this is. I effectively prepare the message, which is just preparing a transaction for the blockchain, get that information back. Then I send a message to my wallet, which is running on my local machine. I have a wallet server. Everyone can download this actually from the Vega wallet repo on our GitHub. So you can run your own wallet and keys. So I have this running, connect to that wallet URL, and that's just going to sign the message. I'm going to check that it's signed okay, because maybe it didn't sign. But the other thing I've also asked the wallet to do with propagate equals true here, that actually means that after it's signed, my wallet that I'm running will send it automatically to a node on the chain. So if I wanted, I could set that to false, get the signed message back and submit it to the node myself separately, but I'm happy with configuring my wallet to do that for me. Going to check it got signed okay. Then we're on a blockchain, so we've got to wait. So we're going to do a little bit of a loop here to wait until we definitely got a confirmation. And then we'll just print everything out. And when I run this, what I want you to watch is on the right-hand side here, you can see my open position and you can see the orders. So on the right-hand side, in fact, let's start off by just setting this to 130 so it won't sell. So on the right-hand side, you'll see as I do it that the order will appear. You go, there's the submitted order, waiting for the blockchain. Bam, blockchain's done, and you can see I've got this order. It's not trading because it's 130 price. Again, this is something that a lot of the AMMs can't even do, and we just have it built in. So let's just try that again with a price of 110. Submit the new order. Wait for the blockchain again. bam, that's gone through, been mined by a block, and now that my position is 0, I've locked in my loss of minus 9 USDC, so I've not done well on that trade, but you can see my other order is there, and I can just use the interface here to cancel that order as well, and that's now gone. So really that was just a quick demonstration of actually, this is not lots and lots of code. You don't need to worry about blockchains. Actually, the nodes expose these really nice APIs, so does the wallet. It's really easy to get started and write code. There's a REST API like this. There's a gRPC API, which is kind of binary and high performance. And there's a GraphQL API, including streaming prices and stuff if you want to build front ends like Console. Indeed, it's the same API that Console is built with. So that was just a bit of a look through Vega. And just the last thing that I wanted to leave you with here was just to say, there's a lot of, as I mentioned, it's easy to build on Vega. There's a lot of docs over at docs.testnet.vega.xyz. Community.vega.xyz is our community forums, and then the place where we all kind of hang out and chat, and we chat techie stuff, markets, whatever else you want to talk about, is vega.xyz/discord. You can find us in there, and on the Encode Discord, we have a channel there as well. And we're going to be at a few workshops over the next month or two as part of this hackathon. So, thank you all. Happy to take any questions now or later, or in Discord, and enjoy the rest of the hackathon.
Oh, thank you very much, Barney. Just as a point of clarification, not to mix two events, this is the DeFi Education Series. The hackathon, Hack the System, which some of you are in, is running concurrently, but is technically a separate event, so no one gets scared that they've accidentally signed up for a hackathon. This is the education side. If you do want to hack, I think we've just pasted the link for Hack the System, where you can go straight into building on Vega right now in the hackathon structure. So I've put that link in there. I want to use this opportunity. So thank you, Mark and Barney, for two brilliant and in-depth looks that kind of so perfectly elucidates what we were talking about in comparing DeFi with TradFi. I want to actually introduce maybe one more person who is a winner of a previous Encode hackathon and is now doing very well. So Mike, do we have Michael from Euler?
Hey.
So there was a question that came up, which was, so just as context, Euler won our, what was it, the summer hackathon. It was actually the hackathon sponsored by Aave in the summer. They've gone on to do very well and are intending to launch very shortly. And there was a question that came up, which is, what is the difference between Euler and Aave? I know we're going to have you for some of the events later in the series, but maybe do you want to give maybe not necessarily answer that, just answer that, but give a general overview of Euler very quickly.
Sure. So I guess I love Aave, by the way. So I'm not here to bash Aave. Aave is basically offering lending markets for some of the most liquid assets on Ethereum right now. So I think they're offering lending markets for 20 or 25 different assets. And at Euler, we wanted to provide a service where you could provide lending and borrowing services for all the other assets that people are trading. And there are hundreds, maybe thousands of these that have liquidity, and new ones being added every day. And there's a good reason why Aave don't tackle these markets already, because they come with lots of challenges around how you isolate risk and such like. So Euler, we've been sort of custom building a new lending protocol that allows users to kind of add their own money markets and isolate risk in a sort of very careful way. So we've got innovations around sort of liquidations, around interest rates, around governance, around how much people can borrow and lend. So like tailoring the over collateralization levels, those kind of things. And we're hoping then that people, should be able to sort of activate their own money markets for their own sort of custom tokens and assets, and then go and, in a similar way to Aave, and immediately be able to earn interest on those and sort of lend them out, and then other people can come and borrow them as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. If you want to learn more about Euler, they will be getting involved in some of the workshops later in the series. Thanks, Michael. I want to now take this time, guys, to answer a few questions that have come up in chat. Mark's been very active, by the way, and dominating the questions. So thank you very much, Mark. But I think some of them actually lend itself more to general discussion. I realize we're a little bit over time, so I won't go on too long. But perhaps we could, and this is, I guess, one for both Barney and Mark, which is kind of the KYC aspect in crypto versus kind of TradFi. TradFi is kind of built around kind of creating safeguarded systems. That KYC is a dominant and kind of beastly thing. How does crypto really kind of deal with that and introduce kind of these safeguards that KYC and AML does afford? Maybe we go to Mark first.
So basically, the first thing I want to say is that protocols are neutral. So when you build permissionless and decentralized technology, you don't really care about who your users are. And basically, I don't know any Aave user. For me, they are just a bunch of hexadecimal characters that interact with smart contract on the public blockchain. And obviously that has a lot of advantage because that's what we want to build. Like the whole vision of decentralized finance is to build finance for everyone, where everybody is treated exactly the same way. And no matter from where you are, no matter how rich you are, you will follow exactly the same rules. That's the main ethos of DeFi. But we do understand that the real world and traditional finance doesn't work like that. And if you are, for example, a hedge fund or family office, you are bound by a compliance department that will say, yeah, but where are we sending our money exactly? And what are these crazy internet money dockets? And basically, it doesn't change a lot the principle, like the technology remains the same, but you will have, and that's more and more the case in DeFi, it's not very visible to the public, but it's more and more the case in DeFi that you have the main markets, the main protocols, what I show you during my presentation, the $5 billion market, that's the main market. This one is decentralized, permissionless, and anybody can access it. But there's more and more demand, especially from institutions, to create closed gardens and say, okay, this is going to be a new market. The liquidity will not be the same. So the rates will be higher or lower depending on supply and demand. But in order to get inside this closed garden, I want you to show your ID. I want you to prove your origin of funds. I want you to only use USDC and not whatever token that is not deemed compliant enough for whatever jurisdiction. And if you do that, I will put you in the whitelist of my smart contract, so you will be able to deposit and borrow. If you are not in the whitelist of smart contract, you can try to interact with it, but the transaction will be rejected by the protocol. And if you do that, it's still decentralized. It's still on the public Ethereum blockchain, and it's still visible to everyone. It's still auditable. It's still something that everybody follow the same rules, but the rules are different because in that different markets, you will have to follow the guidelines of whatever the compliance department is involved in the creation of that market. And you really have to understand that we don't work only in silos. You can have many markets depending of many needs of whatever kind of actors want to interact with DeFi using the exact same technology. And at the end of the day, it's all about the freedom of choice. If as a user, you want to go to the wallet garden, do it. If you want to go to the permissionless market and you have the right to do it for whatever reason, because you are an individual or your compliance department say, oh, well, let's do it, you can go to the permissionless market. It's all about freedom.
Awesome. Barney, what's your take on that? Well, not necessarily that. There was a lot of comments there. I mean, in general, KYC and crypto. And
in general, I think there's a lot that Mark said that's true, and that's exactly right. Is in, firstly, when we're building this stuff, the number one goal here is to make sure, in fact, that we're building decentralized things that can't be where it's actually not possible to do that. Like if you built Ethereum so that there was a button that someone in the SEC could press to turn it off, they probably would have turned it off by now. So, you really want to build these things in a way that allows the world to innovate. And, obviously everyone doing it, including us, we're very aware of the rules and what we can and can't do. Like we certainly would not be able to both build Vega and run it and trade on it. Like, we go build the software and other people run it. And, that allows us to do that and to create that capability for others, because by building software that lets other people have that freedom, that allows us to stay within the rules ourselves, but also allow people that freedom. There is something of a middle ground here, which is to say, as Mark pointed out, in the real world, especially when you're dealing with businesses, when you're an individual, you can go bring some alcohol back from a trip abroad and go slightly above the limit, and it's up to you to take that risk. And you make those sort of decisions every day. You go above the speed limit, whatever. That's an individual decision. When you get to businesses who have auditors and accountants and taxmen, they really don't get to make that decision. You're really not going to, as an import business, let's say, using Vega to try and hedge your currency risk. If the government says you can't use this because it's crazy scary and there's some people with bad people on there and not doing KYC, you're just not going to use it. And we're very aware of that. And the thing that I think we can do is we can build layers on top of permissionless networks, which allow individual participants to have more rules. And the way that that looks like is that I can basically go onto something like Vega, and this won't be available in day one on Vega, which is basically the simple permissionless MVP. But at some point on Vega, I'll be able to go on Vega and say, hey, look, by the way, here's a cryptographic proof that I have gone through KYC in the UK or in the US or wherever. In fact, here's a bunch of cryptographic proofs that prove a bunch of things about my organization. The other thing I'll be able to say is when I submit orders, here's what I want you to check about other people. So even though other people on the system might be there going, hey, I'm just going to trade with everyone, that's cool. I'm going to say, hey, here's an order to buy this, and I need to buy it from someone who has passed KYC in the EU or in the US. And when I put that on the system, the protocol can actually look at the orders it's matching me against and say, okay, there's like a virtual order book. There's a view over the complete lawless, every bit of liquidity. There's a view over that that is actually accessible to me under the rules that I want to be obeying is only this subset of liquidity. And so the system can match me with that liquidity. And then I get this complete cryptographic audit trail that I can take to my regulator and go, look, I've set the rules up. I've expressed what I need. I've gone on this system and I've not broken any rules. I can prove that everything is okay. And the auditor says, that's great. But one of the cool things about this is all of those orders still exist in a world where all the other liquidity is as well. So, perhaps you are regulated in the UK, but you also feel that you can buy, make trades with people who aren't regulated. You now can act as a conduit between the two things. So we effectively have this ability to look at all these different sort of virtualized views of the order book, which is everyone's individual requirements and compliance needs to say what they can and can't do. But the protocol can look at all of that and it can say, hey, this guy wants to buy, this guy over here wants to sell. They can't trade with each other, but there is a route through people who are all mutually happy to trade with each other that is going to obey the rules. And so effectively, the protocol can help people optimize and say, for everyone's individual compliance situation that they've expressed, how do we make the most optimal trades and the most optimal routing? And that's kind of a super cool place that I think DeFi is going to go. It's going to give people this opportunity to be part of this world of liquidity, but also to say, these are my constraints, and I want you to get me the best you can, but within those constraints. And that I think is the future of this stuff. But it's really important, I think, for the future of this stuff. Like as soon as you start going to permissioned systems, you lose a bunch of the benefits, and you get to the point of, well, why not just use a database? I think it's going to be a bit like intranets. Like early on, you're going to get some institutions that are a bit scared and kind of try these permissioned routes. But I think in the long term, the right situation is open, permissionless, decentralized systems, but where individual actors can actually have control over their own constraints and requirements.
Awesome. Two fantastic answers there. I'm slightly conscious of time. We weren't necessarily going to go for live questions, but Nathan, you are the lone soldier, so I'm going to let you go for it. So yeah, feel free to ask your question, Nathan.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for setting this up, and thank you, Barney and Mark, for your presentations, and also Mark for being super fast with the responses inside the comments. My name's Nathan. I'm actually legal counsel at a blockchain identity company. So I deal a lot with KYC and AML actually. And there's quite a few companies here, financial institutions that want to move into the DeFi space. And what we're seeing now through our discussions with them is this shift for, we've had like programmable money, we've had programmable governance, as you can see with Aave governance, and now we're moving towards more programmable compliance. And the thing is, it's actually a lot more difficult to do than as you said. So I was wondering if you guys are working on any solutions as well, especially because of the fact that it's decentralized. So you have different jurisdictions that have different levels of rules. So it's very hard to cover all of them at the same time, especially because there's no global rules that relates to any of DeFi in general.
So in a sentence, how would you kind of, what's the question? I feel like there were several sub-questions. So what's the in a sentence, what have we got here?
I think the main one would be, are you working on looking at international rules and international regulations that affect DeFi?
Okay, let's go to Barney first. International regulations in DeFi. What is Vega's outlook in that respect?
Yeah, so what we're doing is kind of, to follow on from the point that I mentioned earlier, if the way I think about it is it is impossible for a decentralized system that's governed by its users to maintain a list of all the rules, maintain code that works with them, and make sure that's up to date. And actually, that's not the thing that's necessary. What we're actually planning to do is build the tools into the protocol so that every user can be aware of their own regulations and can enforce them. So effectively, you as a user, like Mark said, you're a string of hexadecimal characters to me. And in fact, I don't even get to control what happens on the network. I'm just writing code for it. So, realistically, the network can't know. The network needs to use external sources like companies that will do the KYC verification and like companies that do understand those rules. And then kind of in the spirit of DeFi, which is all about composability, the network is going to take those building blocks, this attestation that I have from another organization that says, yeah, we're saying that we've done KYC and we can prove it, and here's cryptographic proof of that. And it's going to take the rules that participants themselves say they want to use. They're going to say, I am in the UK, and by the way, that rule is not going to be expressed on Vega as I'm in the UK. That's just going to be more hexadecimal codes. It's just going to be codes that say that we like this organization that does KYC. So anyone else who this organization has verified is okay for me to trade with. So you're basically going to say, here's the public key, here's the hex code of some organizations or some verifications that we accept. Now I can trade with any of those. And the protocol is just going to do simple pattern matching, like this order can only trade with things that are also verified by these keys. So effectively, rather than having the protocol and the governance of the protocol needing to know every rule, what the protocol is going to do is it's going to know how to interact with people and other protocols that know every rule. And it's going to know how to query those protocols to say, is the rule being met that this participant needs? Now, if you're a participant and you go on and you don't flag those rules and you say, I'm not going to apply any rules to this order, the protocol will let you break the law in the same way that your car will let you break the speed limit. So the protocol is decentralized. It doesn't know. You're going to have to do that. And then when you get audited and when you get checked out by the regulator, you're going to have to come up with the proof that you've kept it within the regulations or not. So that's the way I see it. Like, I don't think there's any way the protocol, especially open source projects, like ourselves, there's no way that those projects can be aware of everything going on in banks and in regulators and can keep to their timelines. And there's also no reason that you would really want to, because these are peer-to-peer systems, and the sort of the goal of freedom and the goal of permissionless systems is that actually people trading and using those systems take on the risk themselves and take on the responsibility for their own compliance, because they're no longer talking to an exchange in the middle who's going to say, these are the rules, let's make sure you meet them. You're actually talking to other participants, and it's up to you to meet the rules yourself.
Awesome. I'm actually going to finish on one last question, which is for Mark, so we can end off, because I'm conscious we've been running about an hour and a half now. My question to you, Mark, and it's kind of an inspirational one to all the participants. What is your rallying cry about why people should get involved in DeFi right now? What is your what are your words of inspiration that why people should jump in this very second?
I think that it all boils down that DeFi makes you back the owner of your own money. So basically, when you have your money at the bank, we all know that they're just going to play around with that and charge you a monthly fees for the privilege of basically playing around with your money. In DeFi, you are always in control of your money. If someone uses your money, they're going to pay you for it. If you want to borrow, you can do it without paperwork and right now. And you are basically back in control. And that's probably one of the first time in financial history.
Awesome. I know there are some more questions, but I'm conscious we've been going an hour and a half and we have 9 more events that are going to be fantastic. So I want to say a big thank you to Mark from Aave and to Barney from Vega for both coming here today and to their respective protocols for kind of sponsoring this series. We will see you all next Thursday. We're doing a DeFi product stack event. If you're desperate for events in the meantime, there is an intro to blockchain event as part of the hackathon on Tuesday. And if you want to start hacking, if you thought, right, I want to start building on these respective protocols we've heard today, you can go and join our hackathon and build there. So everyone, thank you so much. See you next week. We'll get the content, we'll get the YouTube and the Medium out with all the information about our sponsors today out to hopefully tomorrow morning. But thank you everyone in the meantime. Have a safe evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you again to our speakers. Have a good evening, guys.